Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Swati Bhargava, and I'm the event supervisor for Crime Busters for the Wayne Oakland County Science Olympiad. I'll go through the material that we are referencing from the Macomb County Science Olympiad site. So you'll see probably different names and dates up here. Before we get started, what we will do first is go through the rules. I'll just flash up the rules and then we'll go through the bulk of the presentation, followed by the way how we want to have the kids use the answer sheet. There's a specific answer sheet for this event, and then also the zip grade form. So as we go through each of these sections, please hold your questions till the end of that section and we can take any questions related to what we have just presented, and then we can move on to the next question.
Hi, I'm Anaga. I'm currently a student at Plymouth High School, and I will also be helping out with organizing this event this year.
Okay, thank you. So this is the event rules that all of you would have received by now if you are a coach for this event or a parent who has a kid doing this event. And the rules are 2 pages long. They outline what is needed, what the students may bring, what is provided to the students, and then also what the event is about. So we will use the presentation to go through each of these sections, but before we jump in there, I just want to emphasize these 3 things that the students are allowed to bring in. One is they must bring are the OSHA approved splash safety goggles. So this event is held in a lab, and we usually check students when they come in to make sure they have the right equipment. And this is what, if you're not familiar, these are what those splash proof goggles look like. They're available in any hardware store, $4 or $5. So please make sure that your team, your students have this on hand. They are also allowed a cheat sheet or an index card, 1 per team. So it can be either an index card or a 8.5 by 11 inches sheet that may have material on it. It can be handwritten or printed, but no sticky notes or anything else attached to that sheet. It also helps for them to have a magnifying glass or 2 on hand, because they do use observations to identify any powders, so they can use that. And of course, they would have pencils and so on to use during the test. Cell phones, smartwatches, electronics of any kind, not allowed. And then everything else will be provided to them to use. For example, cups, wooden spoons, or spatulas, and so on, and anything else they need to run the test. So any questions so far? Okay. If not, I'm going to switch to the main presentation that Anaga is going to take us through, covering what this event is about and what is expected.
I think there is one question.
There is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. I see on the rule paper like top like January 11th, 2025. What is that date means? Like,
yeah, so that is when probably this was published. As I mentioned earlier, that I'm referencing material from the Macomb Science Olympiad site, and you'll see the presentations and any other material with a different date or with a different name on it.
okay,
And John, if you want to clarify, add on to that.
That was a great answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
One question, is the Code Buster is the same as the Crime Buster?
No, Code Busters is a different event.
Oh, got you. Thank you.
Okay, so of course, welcome to Crime Busters. In this event, there will essentially be a test in which your 2 students need to solve a crime. They're a part of a forensics unit, and they will be given 6 types of evidence, and depending on who the evidence incriminates, they will determine who has committed the crime. So you can have 1 or 2 people. We highly recommend 2 people, as it's hard to get through the entire test alone. And it is 30 minutes long.
Also, the date here does not reflect the date for Wayne County, Wayne Oakland Science Olympiad. Our date is June 7th, 2025.
So the type of evidence that students will be asked to analyze are powders, ink samples, prints, which include fingerprints, footprints, tire prints, and unspecified evidence. And we'll go through each of these in a little more detail. So they'll always have 5 suspects, but the crime could have been committed by 1 or 2. So they'll have to determine that based on how much evidence incriminates each person. We will be providing the list of possible powders, which is on the answer sheet the kids will be using. We will give water, vinegar, and iodine solution to test the powders to determine what they are, and you'll see how we can do that in a little bit. Plastic cups, wooden spoons and toothpicks, black paper, chromatogram and rubbing alcohol, prints packet, which has all the prints they need to look at, and the exam sheet in the zip grade form. As for scoring, the entire test is 100 points, and any unanswered questions will be automatically marked wrong, other than tiebreakers. And if 2 teams correctly answer all the tiebreaker questions in the event of a tie, the quality of the chromatogram will determine the tiebreaker. And we'll take a look at what chromatograms are a little bit. Students should bring, as we mentioned previously in the rules, goggles required. We will turn away people at the door if they do not have goggles. So please try to get these before hand, so people aren't running around at right before their event trying to find some. They should have 3 pencils or pens. Usually that's a good amount. They can bring their note sheet or index card. Are recommended to bring magnifying glasses, and make sure that your students remember your team number. Additionally, it's good to note that we will not allow cell phones or smartwatches during the event, and teams cannot touch the test materials until we tell them they can. And we will likely have any personal belongings placed either at the front or back of the room, or we might just have them leave them underneath the desks, which we'll use them.
It's good advice just to leave those personal belongings with the parents in the hallway. So that would be a better choice even than putting them somewhere else in the room.
Yes. And also about touching test materials, that includes not touching the powders or any other chemicals that are given with their hands, or trying to taste them, smell them, all of that.
Okay. Of course, no cheating. And there will be point deductions or disqualifications if any of these rules are not followed. Okay, so part 1, powders. This is the first question. It says in the test there are 7 questions. This is considered the first question, in which teams have to identify the powders in 6 different cups. So there's a list of powders, which we'll look at in a second, that can be put in each cup, and there will be up to 3 powders in a cup. And throughout the test, you'll keep seeing this one A, B, C, D, E. And on the next question, you'll see it'll be 2 A, B, C, D, E. These correlate to the suspects that we have, the people that might have committed the crime. So suspect A will be the first person, and suspect B will be the second person. So essentially what the students have to do in this section is that they have to identify what is in each cup, and then identify which cup matches the first cup. And that will tell them who was at the crime scene, as the first cup was also found at the crime scene. Next slide. So we mentioned we'll be giving them black paper. A lot of these powders are white. It's easier to spread them out and see their texture on black paper. So that's what they can use that for. We have water, vinegar, and iodine. All of these different powders have different responses to water, vinegar, and iodine. So what the students will be able to do, they can take a little bit of some of the powder, let's say in cup 1, and put it, like with a spoon, and put it into one of the empty cups and add some water, and it might fizz, it might create a different texture, it might become kind of like a jelly. And for vinegar especially, there's some that fizz a lot more. And iodine, which tests for starches, will turn from this brown color you see here to a black or blue for some of the powders. So these are the things that the kids will need to practice, knowing that, oh, this is how this powder will react in water, vinegar, and iodine. And usually they'll come up with like a process of like the order in which they want to test things. Of course, they can add information on their sheet for the properties of each of the powders that we have the list of. There's toothpicks and spoons to feel the texture of it and move it around. Next slide. So, of course, this is kind of the process I just detailed. The types of powders that are offered are here. You can buy all of these in a grocery store for practice. I'm aware there's kits on the Macomb County website, and I'm not sure how fast they'll arrive, but if you feel the need to order those, you can, but these are all available in a grocery store. Now, some of these powders, because we give mixtures, they are not allowed to be mixed because it'd be very hard to identify. For example, Alka-Seltzer and baking soda, they both fizz in vinegar, and it would be very hard to distinguish between the two, so we don't offer those. And same with calcium carbonate. Cornstarch and flour also will not be together in a mixture. So let your students know this to keep in mind. It'll make it easier to narrow down what powders are in the cup. Next slide. So on the answer sheet, which we'll look at in a little bit more detail at the end, they will circle the powders that they think are in each cup. And then for determining which suspect matches the cup 1, they'll bubble in the letter of the suspect. Okay. Next slide.
You want to take questions on powders at this point?
Yeah, I'll do questions after each section. Okay. I see one hand raised. You can unmute and ask a question.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So for the powder here, I have a question. For the third grader, I wonder how difficult. I know like a third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, they also have the same event, Climb Buster. And I know the powder can mix up to 3 different type of powder. So even for the third grade, like the beginner, I think they consider the beginner to participate on the Science Olympiads this year. Is it a difficulty level? Is it going to be the same as like fourth grade, fifth grade? That means like they also can have up to 3 powders mixed, or they could have, I'm not sure, is it possible they have less powders mixed for them to make it a little bit easier for the third grader? I'm just curious how it actually works at the event.
I believe the test will be the same for all the grades. Of course, they won't be competing against the 4th and the 5th graders. I'm pretty sure they have their own divisions, so they'll only be compared against other 3rd graders to make it a little bit easier.
That's right.
Okay. And in terms of powder, like I know they're given A, B, C, D, E, different cups, and then the kid need to pick up the powder from each cup, either put in the black paper, the black paper, or the empty cup. They actually looks like they could do either one, either the black paper or the empty cup, or could be both, trying to identify the powder, right? So they can need to.
Yes.
Okay.
So black paper, it's typically better to use it to look at it more closely. for some cases, when we mix powders, if there was like sugar and flour, you can spread it out really thin. It'll be easier to look at on the black paper. The cups, on the other hand, they're better for when you want to add a liquid to it, like water or vinegar.
Got it.
That way, like it's not spilling anywhere, and it's easier to mix.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay. Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you.
Another next question.
Yeah, hi. My name is Pearl, and I was the coach for the Crime Busters last year. And some of my students did say that they saw a different powder, like it was colored, is what they described it to be. So I was just wondering, most of these are white powders. I mean, would you color it to make it a little bit more difficult, or?
No, we typically leave the powders how they're found, like from the grocery store, like just straight from the bag to the cup. There's one that is colored. It is yeast, and white cornmeal might also be. I don't think we usually find white cornmeal. It's
Right.
a little more like yellow.
Right.
That might have been what they were referring to.
Okay. Just wanted-
Also, gelatin is kind of off-white, but you can make that out too.
But you don't, you just leave it the way you
Yes,
put.
in as is form.
Yeah.
They're not disguised or anything. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm seeing next to the hands on each of the questions, there's numbers, so I'll ask her the number. Hand 1.
Here 2.
A question.
If you've already asked your question, please take your hand down.
Yeah. Hi, I just wanted to ask one thing. Like from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, only one kid will be participating? Or
No,
like,
so each team will be hopefully a team of 2. They can compete alone with just one if that's how many students the school has, but it's way easier to do it with 2 people just because of the amount of stuff on the test. And there'll be like separate teams for 5th, 4th, and 3rd graders. So there'll be the like 2 5th graders, 2 4th graders, and 2 3rd graders, and they'll be competing as separate teams.
okay. And the other thing, like you will mix 3 powders, right? Like 3 powders will be there for sure. Or like 2, or like it is 3.
No, so any of the cups can have 1 to 3 powders. 3 is
Okay.
the maximum. So some of them
Okay.
can have 1. They won't know how many are in there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I too have a question about the number of classes will you provide at the competition for each team and the black papers. How many black papers and the empty glasses will you provide?
So typically, we provide pieces of black paper, and since there are 5 different cups or samples, as we call them, they'll have at least 5 or 6. And of course, we want to be mindful and make sure they're not wasting and things like that. Also, cups, there's no limited amount, but we have a sense of how many they might need. If they have practiced enough, they can use those liquids like water, vinegar, iodine in a specific sequence. So they should not need more than 7 to 8 cups per team. If they do ask for extras, we do kind of give them out, but just make sure as they're practicing, they're aware and not wasting a lot of this material. But there should be enough. They shouldn't have to worry about not having enough material.
Okay. And which liquid is good to have to test out the mixture of powders? Like there are 3: water, iodine, and the other one. What's the other one? So which one? Vinegar. Sorry. So which one is the best to identify the powders?
So for identification, typically how you would do it is you'd want to use all 3, but of course not at once. The thing is that each of these powders, if you could go to the list of the powders, please, responds differently to each one, and some of them have unique responses. So first you want to start with visual observations, and basically you're looking at it and you're saying, this looks like crystals, or oh, this is a very fine powder. And then you can use your spoon to feel the texture and determine that too. And then usually the sequence I go in when I do it for high school is after looking at it and feeling it, of course with the spoons, don't actually touch it. I add water and then I mix it around. And some of them, like gelatin, will absorb water, and that's pretty distinct, and you can see that. And that's what differentiates it from sugar because they look a little similar. Some of them dissolve in water, like salt can, and sugar. And some of them don't dissolve in water at all, like calcium carbonate, which is essentially chalk. It just sits in the water, and it looks like that. So all of them have different responses. And so now you'll move on to the next one if there's still some that are similar. Like cornstarch and calcium carbonate might look similar in just water. So then you can try the powder with vinegar and see what happens. And for vinegar, baking soda, calcium carbonate, and Alka-Seltzer will all fizz. Alka-Seltzer fizz is in water too, but those are the three distinct ones. So you can determine it's one of those three, and usually you would have narrowed it down to just one based on also having seen the visual observations. And then there's iodine, which tests for a starch, which means that from its orange color originally, it's going to turn black or blue when it's with cornstarch or flour. So that'll help you determine that cornstarch or flour is in the mixture.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
No. So what I recommend when you start coaching or when they start practicing, going with one powder at a time, understanding its visual properties and physical properties, as we call them, looking at them through a magnifying glass on the black paper, and then testing it with water, testing it with vinegar, testing it with iodine, making sure the kids understand what the differences are, what powder reacts with each, building up a table as they record their observations. And then once they are comfortable with understanding each powder, then going for the mixtures.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Is there any more questions?
Yes, I just have one question about the pH level. Is there a pH paper will be provided to test the powder or no for this elementary level?
Not at the elementary level. They can distinguish these powders without pH. Most of them I don't think have pHs to begin with.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
I have a quick question. You all the time talk about iodine, but I think it's a potassium triiodate salt, not pure iodine. Is it true? Because
Yes.
iodine is dangerous and it's volatile also, like
Yeah,
temperature.
we just refer to it as iodine for shorthand, so it's easier for the kids to identify. That's how we'll label the bottle at the competition. But yeah, that's how you would find it in a store to use for practice.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have another question here. For the Alka-Seltzer, the powder, I get the package, the material package from Macomb, and I think it came with a pill instead of actual powder. I'm wondering, like at the event, are the kids giving the pill or they giving actual powder?
We will be powdering them so that it is a powder.
Oh, okay, the powder. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know. Okay.
I think there's one more. It's Rosalina.
Yeah, thank you. The three powders are gonna be mixed or separate? Because I try at home like mix or no, or I should not do that.
So, so if you go back to the answer sheet, did you?
Yeah, like the three that if you shake the three all together.
Yeah. So in any of these cups, there can be 1 to 3 powders. So some of them will just have 1 powder, and some of them will have 2, and some of them will have 3. And you can mix any like combination of them except for the ones we had on the other side, which were Alka-Seltzer, baking soda, and calcium carbonate. You can't have any 2 of those or all 3 of those together because it'll be very hard to identify. And we cannot have cornstarch and flour together in the same cup. But other than that, the kids can get 1 to 3 of these powders in any combination of them other than these two.
Okay, that mix in 1 cup, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm doing a time check here. I think we need to get to the next section. But yeah, we can answer the questions if they are typed in later.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next part is chromatography for ink samples. Essentially what chromatography is the separation of pigments. So what's happening is that when you put there's this paper and you put lines at the bottom with ink. I think if you go to the next slide, there's a process. We will provide the lines at the bottom. Basically, we tell the students that there's a pen found at the crime scene or a note found at the crime scene, and each of these lines are from each suspect's pen. So again, it's another matching game, essentially, where you want to match the crime scene to one of the suspects. So what you do is they will have pencils. You'll push a pencil into the paper to make a hole, and it can hold the chromatogram into the cup. We'll be providing a cup with rubbing alcohol in it. And slowly the rubbing alcohol will be absorbed by the paper and rise, and it will carry the pigments up to create like lines that they can match. This is essential because some of the pens might, like, for example, we might give them all black pens and you can't tell which ones match by just looking at it. But when you separate the pigments, they're all made of different colors and it's easier to match. You want to make sure that they don't put the ink on the paper below the alcohol level. It should remain above. It should just be the bottom of the paper that's in the alcohol. And make sure that they start it at the start of the test because it will take a little bit of time for it to slowly rise up, around 10 minutes. Make sure they don't shake it, and they can keep like tabs on it while they go take other parts of the test. So we said chromatography or the neatness of it could be a criteria for tie breaking. Chromatograms, when you start making them, you'll see how like messy they can get and how neat they can get. Also, these are very straight, clear lines. The inks aren't going into each other, and that can happen when the paper is tilted on the pencil or it like was sticking to the side of the cup and so on. So with practice, you'll see how to get better and better ones. So you should take it out and let it dry before time's up. Next slide. And on the sheet, there's question 2, chromatography, which you just bubble in which one matched. Next slide. Questions about chromatography? I see there's one hand raised, Mr. Rosalina.
I think it was from the chromatography. We have to, they are going to make the lines, right?
We will give them paper with the lines already on it.
So that's going to be easier for them because they don't have to do that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they just have to hang the paper into the cup so
and
that
then,
it would.
And the alcohol, they have to measure the alcohol. That's like the really important thing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think for alcohol, also, we will give it in the cup for them. What they have to do is line it up with the paper so they can like hold the paper against the cup and see where they should poke the hole to hang it properly.
Okay. So the important thing is the hole in the paper. Okay.
Yeah, so that the paper is like the right amount into there.
Okay. Thank you.
We don't want these marks to be dipping too low, so they are inside of the alcohol. That wouldn't give them a clear chromatogram.
Yeah.
So the skill is in understanding where to, basically, how do you hang it and then make sure it's not tilted or sticking to the sides and so on.
Yes. Okay. Next question.
Just want to know which alcohol we are using.
So in the store you can find isopropyl rubbing alcohol. And
It's
you
isopropanol.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
next. Will these cups be transparent?
Yes.
Yes, for chromatography that we use transparent cups.
And what about the powders one?
The powders one, they're not transparent, but they're like shallow enough that they're easy to see. If you've ever been to a restaurant that like has sauces, there's those little sauce cups. They're around that size. They're like that.
Thank you.
For practice, what kind of pens do you guys recommend to use?
It can be any normal ball pen, markers. You'll see the difference when you try it out. It can be any of those.
Okay. So on the test, it will be marked on one side of the chromatography paper. This is the suspect one. That was what you guys are looking for. And then
Right.
when they do it, okay.
Yes, so they will have exactly like this. So there are 6 marks down here, and then the first one is from the crime scene, and then the other 5 are for the suspects. So they will know which one is which, and then it's just matching the pattern.
All right. Thank you so much.
Next.
Let's go to the next section.
Wait, next question. I think there's a few more.
Yeah, for the holes, for the kids to pull the hole through the paper, is it easy for them to pull? Is it anything like a print mark, or there's something the kid need to figure out where to pull the hole?
Usually when they're aligning it like with the cup, just to see where to hang it, depending on the length of the paper or how much is in the cup, they can make a mark with their pencil and then remove it and then poke a hole with their pencil. So make sure they bring sharp pencils. So this is something that's useful.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I've seen some questions in regards to whether this presentation will be available. It is already posted on the Macomb Science Olympiad website, and this session is being recorded.
Okay, we have a few more. Next.
Let's do a time check. I think you guys should keep moving.
Okay. Please type your questions in the chat. I think while I'm talking, other people or Miss Swati can answer them. Okay, so the next part is prints. There will be fingerprints, footprints, and tire prints. And the prints can be like from the crime scene. Of course, they're not going to be perfect. They could be like smudged a little bit or just be half the prints. They're basically looking at the prints found at the crime scene and then looking at the prints that they have received from the suspects and just matching them. And basically, if the suspect's prints were found at the crime scene, that indicates that they were there and committed the crime. And so they'll bubble them in for that. For this, we're going to try to provide printouts that are as clear as possible, which may be hard to do while practicing, but something to keep in mind that the clearer the printout, the easier this is. For a lot of fingerprints, footprints, tire prints, you can find things online, or for practice, you can try to make them yourself, which is also fun, and you can show the kids like these are how they're made. So this one is just matching.
Also, I just want to point one more thing. The one from the crime scene, they can be, and even others, they can be partial prints as well. They can be obscured. So we try to print them out as clearly as possible, but the original evidence or what has been collected from the suspects themselves may be partial or obscured. So, okay.
Okay. Of course, there's the grade sheet and answering the 3 questions here. Next slide. So part 6, this is the part that scares a lot of people, is unspecified evidence. So in the rules, it doesn't say what this can be. It can be anything. It'll likely be there's something that you've seen before that you think, like for crimes like DNA and or like decoding notes or something like that. And it's unspecified, so you won't be able to necessarily practice a specific topic beforehand. The key here is to let your students know that they shouldn't panic because it'll be new, and that they should basically we'll give them enough information to figure it out while they're taking the test. They don't need to know any extra information or advanced knowledge to solve these things. They're mostly puzzles or matching like the previous ones. Like for DNA samples, you'll be matching that to the crime scene. They don't need to actually know too much about DNA. Or for if we asked them to decode a note, we would tell them this is how you decode it, and then they would have to decode it and pick who it implicates. So this one you can get creative for when you're creating practice tests or practice problems. And that's essentially my favorite part of the test. So here we have like hair strands, like we'll give pictures and tell them to match, handwriting samples, pH test. It's all like stuff like just get them able to think on their feet and not panic, and to be able to like solve, like it'll be like a puzzle, so they won't need to study things for this one.
I'm going to switch to 7 because I think this is another important part we want to talk about. Yeah.
Okay, so I should add that we will be providing a story for the crime scene, and before they start doing any parts of the test, they'll be reading the story of what happened at the crime. And they, based on like each of the suspects, they get a little biography too. And it'll be a paragraph, maybe like a short description. And that's how they'll determine I think like just who they are, and they can then bubble in who each of the people were at like the crime scene. So at the end, question 7, this is arguably the most important question, and it'll be who did the crime. And basically you can see on here with the bubbles who had the most evidence against them, and they would be the ones that are most likely to commit the crime. If there's 2 suspects that have the same amount of evidence, like you can see A had 2 bubbles and C also had 2 bubbles, then they can be both bubbled. It's whoever is like the most, and if the most is 2, then it's both of them. Next.
Yeah. Yeah, so please make sure that they use, let me switch here quickly to show that we have the example answer sheets available. I'll flash up the site too. This is the Macomb County site where you can get the material that we were just sharing as well, and example answer sheets to use in practice. And also you can search up the ZipGrade form. It's a simple bubble sheet so that they're familiar with using both of these, and they know what to do for each of those questions. I've had kids come up to me during a test to ask, what am I supposed to do with these sheets? So if you're practicing, please use both of them too. Okay.
Okay, so I need you guys to wrap it up.
Yeah.
You've done a great job.
I just have one question. Do you have any practice, the whole practice test anywhere available? The whole thing?
No, we have not published any, but you can feel free to search online, search on these other Science Olympiad sites as well, or make up your own as